Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Washington, Ms. Strickland.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Rogers. It is nice to see you, Secretary Driscoll and General George, formerly of First Corps at Joint Base Lewis McChord. So glad to see your role in the Army. So in our testimony today, you've heard a lot about quality of life, and I was appointed to serve on the quality of life panel. And we know that housing has always been a very, very important factor. And I heard one of you say that recruitment is how you actually judge whether we're doing well, but I would also say retention is just as important. We are thrilled in a bipartisan way to see the recruiting numbers go up. That is a multi-year bipartisan effort that started in 2023. And even in August of 2024, we had record numbers of recruiting for Army. So kudos to everyone, and let's see those numbers continue to rise. But I want to talk about the basic allowance for housing. I know that in the reconciliation bill, there is a provision for a one-time infusion of nearly $3 billion into the basic allowance for housing account. But there's no further direction on how that money is going to be allocated. So let's assume this bill becomes law. How does the Army intend to use this money? Are you going to, for example, raise a basic allowance for housing up to 100% and keep it there? Are you going to take it up to 98%? Can you be more specific about how we plan to use this basic allowance for housing? And I'll start with Secretary Driscoll and then General George.
And just to your point, Congresswoman, first, the retention, we totally agree. We're thrilled. We told one of your colleagues earlier that we hit our 12-month goal 6 months into this year, which makes us feel good about the state of the Army. And there, to your point, those mechanisms and that experience that those soldiers had began years and years and years ago to make them want to sign back up to enlist. For BAH and for what we do with military construction and for how we provide our soldiers what they deserve, where they deserve to live individually and where they deserve to live with their families. One of the fundamental problems we have, and we desperately need your help, is when we build something on the base, like just inside of our gate, we just did a study, it's 68.5% more expensive than on the other side. And as far as we can tell, the vast majority of those inefficiencies are not from us, they're legislated to us. And so as we think about soldier housing and work together to solve it, we want to work with you to get rid of a lot of those regulations.
I appreciate that. Now, can you go to my question about the basic allowance for housing? $3 billion in the reconciliation bill. How do you plan to distribute that money? Are you going to raise it to 100 permanently, to 98% permanently? That's my specific question.
I would have to follow up. I don't remember. I know that was the intent, was to fully cover the costs. I don't remember if that was a step. The challenge when I was out at Lewis was, these things happen very quickly as far as that. What happened out there was a very hot housing market and then put, a real strain. So I think we also need to just figure out how we are a little bit more dynamic in our process when prices go up. Obviously, no one minds getting a little bit more in their checkbook. I know I didn't from growing up. Right. The problem is when the costs go down and how you adjust some of those things. But I do think we need to be a little bit more flexible in how we're figuring, some of those things out moving forward so that we're more responsive, which is what was the problem that I experienced up at JBLM. We weren't quick enough with, with our soldiers and getting the money, as the prices were going up.
So what do we plan to do with this $3 billion? Is there a plan?
It's specifically labeled. I would have to come back to you. It's specifically labeled for housing and BAH. Then that's what we would use it on. That's how it's been.
So the basic allowance for housing will go up.
Is that specific to Joint Base Lewis McChord, or?
It just says basic allowance for housing, $3 billion in the reconciliation bill. And my question is, how do you plan to deploy that money? Is it going to go up?
It would go on. I would go against housing.
Okay. All right. And then one final comment I want to make. You've heard a lot about funding for barracks, obviously. And I'm going to add and pile on to this just to emphasize how important this is to so many members who sit on this committee. And it was a little disheartening to hear that you're going to reprogram $1 billion from barracks housing to put to the southern border. And we've got people at Camp Humphreys, we've got people at JBLM, we have people around the world. And if you visited those barracks, as you all know, the condition is deplorable. A college parent taking their student to see the quality of those dorms would actually raise holy hell about it or have them disenroll from that school. And so I think my question is, please think carefully about restoring that money. It's a quality of life.
Gentlelady's time's
About
expired.
readiness.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Kansas, Mr.